You've been told the weight is about discipline, about counting calories, about a metabolism that slows with age, about trying harder, eating less, moving more. All of that sounds reasonable. And not one of those explanations describes what is actually happening inside your body right now. If you are a woman somewhere between 40 and 52, watching the scale climb while you do the same things you did at 35 and getting nowhere, or worse, going backward, this video is for you. The weight that has appeared in the last 2 or 3 years, especially around your middle, is not a failure of willpower. It is the predictable, measurable, peer-reviewed result of a specific hormonal shift almost no one warned you about, and that your annual physical does not check for. This isn't your fault. Your body is doing exactly what biology built it to do under these conditions. The problem is that nobody told you the conditions had changed. One quick note before I go further. This video is about a phase of life that affects women. But there are a lot of men watching this channel because their wife or partner or sister or daughter is in the middle of something they cannot quite explain, and the doctor's office sent her home with a shrug. If that is you, stay. The thing she is going through has a name, a mechanism, and a body of research behind it. Understanding what is happening is one of the kindest things you can offer her right now. Here is what most people get wrong from the very start. Menopause is not a phase. Menopause is one single day, the day that marks 12 consecutive months without a period. Everything that happens before that day, sometimes for as long as 8 years, is called perimenopause, and perimenopause is where almost all of the trouble lives. The popular story is that hormones decline gracefully with age, like a slow sunset. The reality looks more like a thunderstorm. Estrogen does not fade smoothly. It spikes, crashes, spikes again, crashes deeper. Progesterone falls first, and it falls hard. 2 hormones that worked in rhythm for 30 years suddenly start sending your body conflicting messages, sometimes inside the same week. This is not a gentle descent. It is hormonal chaos. And your body is trying to function inside that chaos every single day, while you are still showing up for work, raising kids, making dinner, paying the mortgage, and pretending you slept. The Mayo Clinic notes that perimenopause most commonly begins in a woman's mid-40s, with the transition lasting on average about 4 years, though for some women it stretches to 8 or more. A few begin in their late 30s. Almost no one notices the start, because the early signs are not the dramatic ones from the movies. They are sleep that gets a little worse, weight that becomes a little stickier, a body that no longer responds the way it used to. Then comes the moment that makes women feel like they are losing their minds. You describe the changes to your doctor, and what comes back, in 15 minutes or less, is some version of, eat less, move more, it is probably stress, here is a referral to a nutritionist. That is not a personal failure of your doctor. The average primary care visit in this country runs under 20 minutes. There is no version of perimenopausal metabolic biology that fits into that window. So you walk out with advice that worked when you were 32 and does almost nothing for the body you have at 46. You are not crazy. You are not lazy. You are not failing. You are dealing with a body that has changed at the level of hormones, signals, and storage, and almost no one has explained to you what actually changed. Now, here is what I want you to stick around for. Somewhere in the middle of this video, I am going to show you the single biggest shift that happens inside your body during this window. It is not a shift in how much you weigh. It is a shift in where your body decides to put the weight, and what the weight does once it gets there. It changes your sugar, your sleep, your hunger, your inflammation, your heart. And it is the one thing your annual physical almost never measures, because the standard panel looks at numbers that do not catch it. Once you see the shift clearly, almost everything you have been confused about for the last few years starts to make sense in a different way. In the next part, we go straight to the research, the longest-running study ever conducted on women in this exact phase of life. More than 20 years of data, thousands of women tracked across the menopausal transition. It is called the SWAN study, the study of women's health across the nation, and the picture it produced is not the one you were sold. Let me show you what they actually found. For 30 years, estrogen has been doing a quiet job nobody told you about. Yes, it ran your cycle. Yes, it kept your bones dense and your mood steady. But there is another job, one that does not get talked about in any waiting room. Estrogen has been telling your body where to put fat. For most of your adult life, your body has been a careful warehouse manager. Extra energy from food goes to the subcutaneous layer, the soft fat you can pinch on the hips, the thighs, the backs of the arms. That kind of fat is not just storage, it is protective. It sits politely. It releases its contents slowly. It does not pick fights with the rest of your body. That arrangement was estrogen's idea. As long as the signal was steady, the rules held. In perimenopause, the signal becomes unreliable. The hormone that has spent decades whispering to your fat cells about where to go and what to do starts speaking in static. And here is what almost no one explains. When the message scrambles, your body does not just gain more fat. It changes where the fat goes. It moves to the middle, to a different kind of fat altogether. There is a name for it: visceral fat. The fat that hides deep inside your belly, wrapped around your liver, your pancreas, your intestines. You cannot see it. You cannot feel it. The scale may not even notice it for a while, but it does not lie there quietly. It works. Here is what the research actually shows. In 2021, a team led by Saad Samargandi and Samar El-Kuduri at the University of Pittsburgh published a study in the journal Menopause using data from the SWAN Heart Study. They tracked 362 women across the menopausal transition with imaging that measured visceral fat directly, not weight, not waist size, but the actual deep fat inside the abdomen. What they found was striking. More than 2 years before a woman's last period, the deep belly fat barely changed year to year. Then, in the 2 years leading up to that final period, it began climbing at about 8% per year. After menopause, it kept climbing at almost 6% per year. The acceleration was not gradual, it was a switch. That is what I mean by the visceral fat switch. A specific window of 2 to 3 years, usually somewhere between 45 and 50, where the body flips its storage rules. Same diet, same workouts, same sleep, different destination for every bite. And the destination is the one type of fat that behaves nothing like the rest. Because here is the part most women have never been told. Visceral fat is not passive tissue. It is, functionally, an organ, one that pumps chemical signals into your blood every minute of every day. It releases inflammatory messengers that travel everywhere: your joints, your brain, your blood vessels, your liver. It quietly nudges your immune system into a low-grade simmer that the body never gets to cool down. And it has one particular effect that explains a great deal of what you are experiencing: insulin resistance. Insulin is the hormone that, after every meal, knocks on your cells and tells them, "Open up, pull this sugar out of the blood." When your cells hear that knock year after year, and especially when visceral fat is steadily shouting inflammatory signals into the bloodstream, your cells start to ignore it. Your pancreas answers by knocking louder. It releases more insulin, and more, and more. And high insulin, circulating hour after hour, is a direct command to the body: store fat, do not burn it. This is the loop. Visceral fat raises inflammation. Inflammation pushes your cells to stop listening to insulin. Your pancreas overcompensates. The excess insulin tells your body to keep storing. And where does it preferentially store, now that estrogen no longer holds the line? Right back into the same place. Same meal, same calories. A completely different fate inside the body. It is not that you are eating more. It is that the same food is being routed to a different place, and the place itself is now pushing you to store more. In the next part, 2 amplifiers take this switch and turn it into something much louder: muscle loss and broken sleep. Plus one specific habit almost every woman in this window does several times a week without realizing it, triples down on the whole problem. The switch alone would be enough to explain a lot, but the switch does not happen alone. 3 other things are running in parallel, in the same body, in the same window of life, and each one turns up the volume on the central problem. Together, they explain why the weight in this window feels different from any weight you have carried before. Let's start with the one almost nobody warns you about: muscle. There is a name for what happens to muscle in the second half of adult life. It is called sarcopenia. The quiet, steady loss of muscle that begins somewhere in your 30s, picks up speed in your 40s, and accelerates again at the perimenopausal turn. And here is what almost no one tells you. Muscle is your body's biggest sugar consumer. Every minute of every day, the muscle on your skeleton is pulling glucose out of your bloodstream just to keep itself fueled. The more muscle you carry, the more sugar your body burns simply by being alive. When muscle starts to leave, that sugar has fewer places to go. In 2019, Dr. Gail Greendale and her team at UCLA published an analysis of more than 1,200 women from the same long-running cohort I mentioned earlier. Before the menopausal transition, the average woman was gaining a small amount of muscle each year, about 0.2%. As soon as the transition began, the direction reversed. Women started losing muscle at almost exactly the same rate they had been gaining it. It is a small number on paper. It is a massive number in real life. Because the muscle that leaves is the muscle that was eating your sugar, and the sugar that no longer has a home in muscle does not vanish. It goes, yes, back to the same destination. Now, sleep. If you ask a woman in perimenopause what changed first, she rarely says wait. She says sleep. The hot flashes that wake her at 2 a.m, soaked, heart-pounding. The bathroom trip that used to be once a night and is now 4. The mind that boots up at 4:30 and will not boot down. A 2018 review by Dr. Fiona Baker and her team at SRI International, published in Nature and Science of Sleep, pulled together more than a decade of research on midlife women's sleep. Somewhere between 40 and 60% of perimenopausal women report meaningful sleep disruption, and the dominant cause is the nighttime version of hot flashes. The sleep itself is not just shorter, it is shallower, with less of the deep stages that repair the body overnight. This is where cortisol enters the room. Broken sleep drives overnight cortisol up. Elevated cortisol the next morning blunts how your cells listen to insulin for the next 24 hours, which means your body wakes up already primed to store rather than burn. Repeat this 5 nights a week for a few years, and the storage pressure on the system becomes structural. And then there is the third one, the one almost no one wants to hear: alcohol. Specifically, the kind of drinking that was completely uneventful at 35 and that quietly becomes a separate accelerant after 45. The glass of wine with dinner, the 2 on Friday, the cocktail that helps you wind down because winding down on your own has gotten harder. A 2026 study from the Oxford Biobank, published in the International Journal of Obesity, ran direct body imaging scans on nearly 6,000 adults to look at the link between regular drinking and deep abdominal fat. After controlling for total body fat, age, activity, and other variables, women who drank more than about 5 to 6 standard drinks per week carried over 10% more deep belly fat than women who drank less, and the relationship was dose-dependent. More drinks, more accumulation in the middle. The mechanism is not mysterious. Alcohol pauses fat burning for several hours after every drink, because the liver has to clear alcohol first and stores everything else. It scrambles the same estrogen signaling that is already running unreliably in this window. It wrecks the deep stages of sleep. Even 1 or 2 drinks measurably shorten them. And it pours pure calories into the system without any sense of fullness on the back end. Your body at 35 was a different animal. It absorbed the drink, processed it, moved on. Your body in this window does not have the same equipment. The same glass of wine that used to disappear quietly now lands somewhere, and lands in the one place you do not want. 3 amplifiers. Each one turns the central switch into something louder than it had to be. Quick break. I'm about halfway through this video. If what you've heard so far is making sense of the last 3 years of your life, take half a second and hit the subscribe button. I publish a new evidence-based breakdown like this every week, and the only way the algorithm shows them to you is if you actually subscribe. It helps the channel, and frankly, it helps you, because YouTube will start surfacing the rest of the work to you automatically. In the next part, we'll look at the single measurement you can take at home in 30 seconds that catches this switch years before your annual physical sees a problem. It is the most useful early warning sign in this window, and almost nobody is checking it. Earlier in this video, I promised you a number, the one your annual physical almost never checks, the one that turns red years before your blood work goes sideways. Time to deliver! But first, 30 seconds on the number your annual physical does check and why it is failing you in this specific window of life. Body Mass Index, BMI. BMI is your weight divided by your height squared. It produces a single label and places you somewhere on a chart. It is fast, it is free, and it is the laziest indicator of metabolic health that medicine still uses, especially for women in midlife. Here is why. BMI does not know where your fat is. It does not know how much muscle you carry. It sees a total weight and a total height and hands you a category. For a woman before perimenopause, BMI is a rough but reasonable proxy. The fat is mostly in the protective layer, the muscle is intact, the hormonal climate is steady. The number on the chart loosely tracks with health. For a woman in the middle of the shift we have been talking about, BMI lies. Here is what that looks like in real life. A woman walks into her doctor's office at 46, weighing exactly what she weighed at 35. Same height, same weight, same BMI. Healthy on paper. Except inside her body, the muscle she lost was replaced by the worst kind of fat, in the worst possible place, surrounded by the worst possible inflammation. She is metabolically a different person. Her doctor sees a normal number and tells her she is fine. She is not fine. The number is wrong. So what is the right number? Pick up a soft tape measure. Find the spot between the bottom of your ribs and the top of your hip bones, usually right around the level of your belly button, sometimes a little above. Wrap the tape, breathe out normally, and read the number. That is your waist circumference. Now compare it to your height. Here is the rule. Keep your waist less than half your height. If you are 5'6", your waist should stay under 33 inches. If you are 5'4", under 32. That is it. The ratio has a name, waist to height ratio, and the evidence behind it is now overwhelming. In 2023, a team led by Ramin Abdi Desfouli and Mostafa Korbani at Tehran University of Medical Sciences published a meta-analysis in the International Journal of Obesity, pulling together 20 long-term studies of adults around the world. People with the highest waist-to-height ratio had a 23% higher risk of dying from any cause compared to those with the lowest. For cardiovascular death specifically, the risk was 39% higher. Every standard step up the ratio raised the risk of dying by 16%. This is not a soft signal. This is the strongest, simplest predictor of midlife metabolic trouble that medicine has, and it costs the price of a $5 tape measure. So why does your doctor still write down a BMI instead? Because BMI is built into the electronic record, the insurance form, the chart your doctor scrolls past during a rushed visit. The system has not caught up to what the research has been showing for the last decade. You can catch up tonight, in 30 seconds, with a tape measure. And here is why this matters so much right now in this specific window. The waist-to-height ratio is the first thing that moves when the body flips. Your blood sugar may still look fine. Your cholesterol may still look fine. Your weight may still look fine. But the tape tells the truth long before any of those panels go red. Because what the tape is measuring, indirectly but reliably, is the deep belly fat that has been the quiet center of this entire conversation. The earlier you can see what your body is doing, the earlier you can do something about it. Which brings us to the next part. What the research actually shows works in this specific window, including the part of this conversation that has caused more confusion than almost anything else in the last few years. The new weight loss medications. Whether they are a real answer for women going through this shift. The picture there is more nuanced than the headlines suggest. You have the measurement. You can see where you are. Now the question that actually matters. What does the research show works for a body in this window? There are foundations. There are tools. The foundations matter more. Foundation 1. Lift heavy things. Not yoga, not toning, resistance training. Picking up weights that are uncomfortable to pick up, putting them down, doing it again. 2 to 3 times a week with progressive load. This is the single most powerful countermove to the muscle problem we covered earlier, and it does more than rebuild what is leaving. It directly improves how your cells respond to insulin, often within weeks. More muscle means more places for sugar to go, less pressure on the central system. Protein supports what lifting builds. The general research direction is that women in midlife do better on more protein than the current dietary guidelines suggest. Not on a diet, but on a meaningful base of protein at every meal. The exact number depends on the body. The principle is well established. Foundation 2. Sleep. Not as a luxury, as non-negotiable. If your sleep is broken, that is the lever to address first, because nothing else works as well in a sleep-deprived body. Now to where most of the noise is, the pharmacology. 2 roads are worth talking about. One is menopausal hormone therapy, sometimes called MHT or HT. The other is the new class of weight loss medications. The best-known examples are semaglutide, marketed as Ozempic for diabetes, and Wegovy for weight loss, and tirzepatide, marketed as Mounjaro and Zepbound. On hormone therapy, here is the current state of the evidence. In 2022, the Menopause Society, formerly NAMS, published its updated position statement, led by Dr. Stephanie Fabian at the Mayo Clinic, in the journal Menopause. The bottom line? Hormone therapy remains the most effective treatment for hot flashes and night sweats, with a favorable risk-benefit profile when started within 10 years of the final period and before age 60. There is growing evidence that it also modestly reduces abdominal fat accumulation and helps protect how your body responds to insulin. It is not a weight loss drug. It is a tool that smooths the hormonal climate the rest of your interventions are operating in. On the new medications, the data is genuinely impressive. The SURMOUNT-1 trial, led by Dr. Anya Jastreboff at Yale and published in the New England Journal of Medicine, found that participants on tirzepatide lost an average of 21% of their body weight over 72 weeks. Semaglutide lands lower, around 14%. These are real numbers in real bodies. There is, however, a catch, and it matters more here than almost anywhere else. About a quarter of the weight lost on these medications comes from lean tissue, muscle. The very tissue this video has been telling you is already leaving faster than it should in this window. A 2025 body composition sub-study from the same trial, published in Diabetes, Obesity, and Metabolism, looked at the bodies directly. Alongside roughly 20% total weight loss, lean mass dropped by about 11%. For a woman in this window, that is not a neutral side effect. It is the opposite of what her body needs. Without serious resistance training on top, the drug solves one problem, the number on the scale, while quietly making the underlying problem worse. This is not a reason to dismiss these medications. They are powerful, and for some women, in conversation with their doctor, they may be the right tool. It is a reason to understand what you are actually choosing, and to understand that none of these, MHT included, replace the foundations. They sit on top of them. In the final part, we pull it all together. What the body is actually doing. What to take from this video. And one last thing about how to think about this whole window of life. Let's bring this home. Here is what changed in your body. For 30 years, a hormonal climate held everything in a certain shape. Fat went where it was supposed to go. Muscle held its position. Insulin worked the way it was meant to. Sleep mostly happened. The system was elegant, and it ran in the background, and you did not have to think about it. Then the climate started shifting. Not gracefully, not on schedule. The hormones that orchestrated everything began behaving unpredictably, then less reliably, then less generously. The body started routing fat to a different place. Muscle began leaving instead of growing. Sleep cracked. The alcohol that used to disappear started landing, and every one of these changes pushed the others. This is what almost no one has explained to you. The weight is not a verdict on you. It is a readout from a body doing exactly what an unmodified human body does when its central hormonal regulator goes off script. And here is the most important reframing of this entire conversation. Your body did not break. It switched. A body that has switched can be worked with. A body that is broken cannot. The interventions that work in this window, the lifting, the protein, the sleep, the hormonal options, the right use of medication when it is appropriate, they work because they speak to the actual machine, not the one you used to have, the one you have now. If you take 3 things from this video, take these. 1. Get a tape measure. Tonight. Measure your waist, measure your height. The ratio is a real number that tells a real story, and almost nothing in modern medicine is more useful for the price. 2. Start lifting. Whatever you have access to. Body weight if that is what you have. Dumbbells if those are what you have. The first few weeks of resistance training change your cells before they change your shape. The body listens fast. 3. Find a clinician who actually understands midlife biology, not the rushed primary care visit. A practitioner who has read the menopause literature in the last 3 years. They exist. They are not always easy to find. They are worth finding. And here is the part nobody warns you about. After all this, after the long, noisy stretch where the climate is unpredictable and the body is rebuilding the rules of its own metabolism, there is another side. Postmenopause stabilizes. The hormonal storm settles. The acceleration we have been describing slows down. The body finds a new equilibrium, often a more durable one than the one it left, especially if you have spent these years building muscle, protecting sleep, and keeping the deep middle in check. Perimenopause is not the end of anything. It is a passage with a far side. The women who come through this with their bodies functioning and their energy intact have one thing in common. They stop fighting the body they used to have. They start working with the body they actually have. If this video helped you understand what is happening, subscribe to the channel. I publish a new, evidence-based breakdown every week. Drop a comment with the question you want me to cover next. I read every one. And if you are a man who stayed for the whole thing because someone you love is going through this, send it to her. Some of what she needs is in this video. The rest of what she needs is the knowledge that someone in her life cared enough to learn. I'll see you in the next one.